Hello everyone! By the time this video releases, OG Fortnite will be nearing its end, so I wanted to use this opportunity to tell the story that we're revisiting this season of Fortnite. This video will be covering the storyline from Seasons 7, 8, 9, and X of Chapter 1. I recently made a video covering Seasons 3, 4, 5, and 6 of Chapter 1, so please go check it out, I would greatly appreciate it. You can think of that video as Part 1 of Chapter 1, and this video is Part 2. But for a quick explanation as to what Fortnite is and how the storytelling works, for any viewers who don't know about the game, Fortnite is a battle royale game where you compete against 99 other players to be the last survivor, and the story is usually told in the background through quests over the season or end of season live events that all players participate in. The map also gets changed every season to reflect the story, but that's enough explanation as to what the game is, so let's hop right into the end of Fortnite. I'm going to attempt to recap the story events that led up to Season 7 in 30 seconds. So here we go. There's a meteor that struck the island, and inside the meteor was a member of the Seven named the Visitor. He programmed a rocket to leave the island, and the rocket caused massive space-time portals called rifts to appear. One of the rifts brought a cube of dark energy to the island that attempted to corrupt everything and spawn zombie-like entities, but ended up absorbing too much energy, overloaded, and blew up, sending the loopers to a different dimension for a couple minutes until rifting back to the island from a rift butterfly. Shortly after, a massive iceberg slowly approached the island, setting up Season 6. Check out the previous video on my channel about the downfall of the Fortnite island for an in-depth explanation as to what happened in the first half of Chapter 1. So hopefully you guys got all that, but again, check out my video on the downfall of the Fortnite island to learn how we got to this point in the story. At the end of the season, there was an iceberg that slowly began approaching the island, with a robot named AIM surveying the island in preparation for the approach of the iceberg. Now, on to Season 7. Season 7 opens up with a cinematic showing a Christmas special titled Crackshot and Santa's on His Way. This special is designed in an art style reminiscent of old Christmas specials like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and A Year Without a Santa Claus. We see the character Crackshot celebrating the soon arrival of Santa Claus by decorating his cabin along with his dog Woodsy and putting out milk and cookies for Santa, full of cheer and gleefulness for the occasion. However, this cheer will be short-lived as the ground starts shaking, causing all the decorations in the house to start falling over. And Crackshot approaches the TV screen, breaking the fourth wall. The camera pans out and shows the characters watching the special and go outside to find the iceberg from the end of the last season reaching the island. The characters look up in awe and wonder to see Santa Claus standing on top of the iceberg. However, this is also short-lived, as they notice Santa and his henchmen holding weapons and start firing upon the island, kicking off Season 7, You Better Watch Out. The full southwestern portion of the island was covered in snow at this point, with the new POIs such as the festive Norwegian town Happy Hamlet, the mysterious castle on top of the iceberg named Polar Peak, and the airbase known as Frosty Flights. First, let's take a look at Frosty Flights. This base, among tons of other small bases and camps that popped up on the island, had the locos that appeared on AIM and became known by the community as Expedition. The Expedition organization is led by Sergeant Winter, who appears to be a variation of Santa Claus. Other characters we can see part of or affiliated with Expedition over the course of the whole storyline are, of course, AIM, Slushy Soldier, and Red-Nosed Ranger, all being henchmen of Expedition, as well as Explorers Zenith and Powder, the Designer Lynx, Snow Dancer, Crackshot, and his right-hand man and companion of Sergeant Winter, Snowmando. Although this faction is shown up time and time again over the course of the story, there honestly isn't too much information on the group besides them being interested in research and conquest, except this scene in a dream sequence showing Sergeant Winter and Snow Dancer traveling through a wormhole, possibly being canonical abilities they possess. So, now you might be asking, if they don't have any story behind them, then who's the focus of the story? Well, to answer that, we have to turn our attention to Polar Peak. On the top of this mountain, the ice has been slowly melting over the course of the season due to the climate of the island. It begins to reveal more and more of a castle sitting on top, with a mythical weapon known as the Infinity Blade being uncovered under the ice as well. As a side note, the Infinity Blade is a weapon from another one of the games made by Epic Games titled Infinity Blade. In this castle we can find a throne room with a round table with elemental symbols engraved in it. This is the castle of the Ice King. He's a character shrouded in a hood with blue metallic armor that has ice powers. In the depths of the castle, prison cells can be seen, and another character is in one cell thawing out, as well as eggs in another. When the Ice King realizes the ice is melting, He grows concerned and takes action. He forms a sphere of ice around him, above the castle, holding shards of the cube from the previous season. After a couple of days of building up energy, the spheres break open. The aurora in the sky forms in the image of the Ice King, copying his movements. The Ice King swirls his hands around with freezing energy, stirring up a storm. And unleashes a blizzard over the island, shrouding it in snow and ice. Ice fiends appear as well, as a product of the combination of the cube's energy mixed with the Ice King's. For weeks, this blizzard ravaged the island, but unfortunately for the Ice King, this was short-lived. The prisoner, who was trapped in the castle, escaped to the opposite end of the island, as the tropical climate warmed him and the rest of the island up. But, before we get to the end of this season, I'd like to turn our attention elsewhere to take a look at the backstory of these two characters. The backstory of these characters were revealed in a crossover comic that was done with a certain company that many of you might recognize, but for those of you who haven't seen this yet, I'll just save this for a later video. But I'll go ahead and read what the Ice King said happened, and just let you guys listen.
Greetings, visitors, and felicitations. To reach my throne room alive is an achievement indeed. No doubt you have questions. You have earned answers. I once had another name, but the Ice King is how I am known, and it serves well enough. Uncounted ages ago, brave allies and I began collecting items of power, things and beings too dangerous to exist. My worst fears were realized when my staunchest comrade argued for using these items to alter realities to our liking. I was forced to free some my other knights and all we'd acquired within our fortresses. I brought my ice moon here to a reality I believed isolated and safe. Weary, I turned the ice upon myself to sleep at last, forever. But, in a cosmic storm, a piece of the moon containing the castle in which I dwelled was sheared off. Fragments struck the island below. As the ice melted, I awoke and perceived the danger from my dungeons. The prisoner, my old ally turned enemy, escaped. I battled him, attempting to stop him from unleashing yet worse dangers. I failed.
After hearing what the Ice King said about collecting powerful items from different realities, it's reasonable to assume that the Infinity Blade isn't just a random crossover, but he actually brought it from that reality. So as we get to the end of this season, something very unique happened that never happened before in Fortnite or any game that I can think of really. This is a virtual concert put on the popular EDM artist Marshmello called Showtime. Contrary to popular belief, this wasn't pre-recorded, it was a completely live performance as Marshmello interacted with the 10 million attendees during the concert. And lore was never really explained how he got to the island, but I would wager that he either randomly got rifted to the island, or maybe someone brought him there to distract the loopers. But now that I've touched on that, let's continue. The creative game mode was also released in Season 7. Basically in this game mode, loopers could go around to different islands and create whatever type of game mode they'd like, or create whatever scenery, or anything that you can think of really. There are theories that these islands are just far away from the main island, or there's a theory that each island is in a separate reality itself from the main reality that the Fortnite game takes place in. After the prisoner escaped to the north end of the island, earthquakes started occurring with cracks forming in the ground, moving into the next season. The cinematic for Season 8 starts off with a group of pirates examining a treasure map while approaching the island. These pirates are led by Blackheart. Throughout the season, many different individuals will be searching for treasure over the island. However, they aren't too relevant to the story. We cut over to Polar Peak from the previous season to see the Ice King and his henchmen searching for the treasure as well. Next, we see a volcano on the northern side of the map, formed by the prisoner in between seasons off-screen. The prisoner and his newly hatched henchmen from the eggs that were imprisoned alongside him launch out of the volcano towards the treasure as well. All three groups arrive at the island at the same time and a fight ensues. As previously stated, different individuals are shown hunting for treasure throughout the season, such as Peely, Jonesy, Master Key, Sidewinder, Lux, and of course the pirates. Master Key and Sidewinder are seen in the Aztec-inspired area called Sunny Steps that lies where Wailing Woods used to be. The pirates set up operations in the new pirate bay dubbed Lazy Lagoon, where the Lazy Links golf course once was. As a note on Peely, he was formed when Jonesy went into a rift holding a banana. None of these characters are vital to this portion of the story like other characters have been in the past, but we'll come back to them eventually. We have some jumping around in the story here, so please bear with me. The main factions here are the Ice King and the Prisoner, battling for control over the island, with the volcano and tropical section of the island against the cold frigid part with the iceberg. While this was going on, something shady was going on in the background. If you remember in my previous video, I talked about an unknown organization who set up a facility to investigate the meteor in Dusty Divot and had a base set up in Wailing Woods. This group is known as the government. They can be seen from time to time conducting operations around the island, but that's all I'll reveal for now. In this season, this group had a helicopter that was flying around to scout the island and set up various dig sites. The first dig site was set up near Paradise Palms, and after the excavation was complete, dinosaur bones and a volcanic vent were discovered. Seemingly not satisfied by this discovery, they moved over back to Dusty Divot, where they were previously set up. However, after digging down so much, they hit lava, which filled up this dig site, causing them to change locations yet again. After this, they moved operations right outside of Loot Lake. This time was different. After excavating for a while, a giant metal door was discovered that echoed when hit. The government realized that they had found what they were looking for. They began digging in the middle of Loot Lake, all dried out after the events that transpired in the previous seasons. Underneath Loot Lake was a giant metallic bunker. This bunker had smaller doors around the outside and a giant spiral door in the middle. Shortly after, holographic glyphs appeared above one of the doors, and elsewhere on the island, giant floating keys appeared with the same glyphs. The loopers realized that these keys correspond to the vault glyphs and had to perform different tasks, such as dealing damage to the keys or hitting light sources at the same time. After completing the tasks, the keys inserted themselves into the holes in the vault, causing the smaller doors to glow blue. Here, we can see the main characters previously mentioned observing these events and realizing that the treasure that they're looking for might lie below. However, they wouldn't get to investigate this bunker for long as Thanos showed up to the island yet again, this time with his army of Chitauri. If you aren't aware, Thanos showed up in Season 4, which I talked about in my previous video, but this time it was his past version from Avengers Endgame on a quest for the Infinity Stones. The loopers used weapons from the Avengers that appeared on the island and set Thanos away after some time fighting. By this time, smoke started coming out of the volcano as it became more and more active. It's thought that this was because of the activity at Loot Lake with the bunker and all the digging messing with the volcano, but I have another theory I'll come back to later in the video. But for now, the final keys have been inserted into the bunker and a timer appeared above, counting down from 24 hours, letting the loopers know that the bunker was about to open. A day later, it did. A giant blue beam of light shot out of the vault as it slowly began to open. The middle part rose up as well, forming a tunnel the loopers could jump down into. Once inside, the loopers were now in an area known as the Vault. Whenever guns had been taken out of the game in the past, it was said that they were vaulted, and when they came back, they were unvaulted. This is the area where those weapons have been kept. Inside, 6 weapons were seen: the grappler, bouncers, drum gun, infinity blade, planes, and tac SMG, all inside glowing columns. Inside the vault, there was also a desk with supplies, a radio, and a strange helmet sitting on top. And behind this desk was a giant glowing orb of energy. Fans of the series will know what this orb is, but for those of you who don't, you'll have to stay till later in the video to find out. While we're here, I want to mention that the vault looks similar to the in-between dimension we saw in the cube event, so it's theorized that this is the same place, or perhaps somewhere similar, even an artificial version. When in the vault, loopers got to vote on which weapon they wanted unvaulted, and the drum gun was the winner. After this was selected, the other weapon sank back into the ground, and the pillar formed a rift, bringing the loopers back to the island. However, they would be in for a surprise when they returned. The sky was completely black with smoke, and the volcano was now completely active and erupting. One piece of volcanic rock shot out of the volcano, completely destroying Retail Row. A second shot out and hit Polar Peak. And then finally, a massive barrage completely decimated Tilted Towers, leaving only ash in its wake. While the volcano was erupting, we pan down to see Jonesy and Peely running for their lives as they come across a doomsday bunker and barely escape certain death. As they get in, the lights turn on to reveal a man cave in the bunker with arcade machines, a dance floor and DJ booth, and a gym area as well. However, when they get to the kitchen and open the refrigerator, they realize there's no food. Things take a dark turn as Jonesy looks over at Peely and slowly closes the fridge. After some time passes, a robot chicken named Sentinel comes across the bunker, accompanied by Rox and Vega. From the darkness of the bunker emerges Jonesy, covered in pinkish purple goop, and now with a fully grown beard, holding Peely, now in smoothie form. When he looks up, he sees that Tilted Towers has now been rebuilt, completely futuristic, and now called Neo Tilted, showing the futuristic theme for this season. Over the time that passed while Jonesy was in the bunker, Tilted Towers and Retail Row got rebuilt into Neo Tilted and Mega Mall respectively. The now dormant volcano got converted into a power plant called the Pressure Plant, using the steam pressure as power. And the vault at Loot Lake has a giant tube coming out of it, powering Neo Tilted. In Neo Tilted, a statue could be seen of a woman in an armored suit, but there was something familiar about this statue. She was holding the helmet that was seen on the desk in the vault. This woman is known as the Singularity. The Singularity is a member of the government and led the construction of Neo Tilted and Mega Mall. She'll be very important later in the season. During the season, the Continental Hotel from the John Wick franchise can be seen as a titular character shows up, possibly through a rift or having been purposely brought to the island. In this season, gateways to the Upside Down from Stranger Things appear as well in Mega Mall, along with Hopper and a Demogorgon emerging from these portals onto the island. None of these lead to anything big in this season besides bring a little chaos to the island, but I just wanted to mention them. Over the season, players could collect little microchips called Fort Bites. As they were collected, they started to reveal an image, and this image is from the video footage Bunker Jonesy recorded when he was in the bunker. This image shows Jonesy riding on the walls in a crazy manner. At first look, it might seem like nonsense, but a deeper inspection reveals events that previously happened in the season, such as the meteor hitting Dusty Depot, the rocket launching, and the cube appearing. However, when he finishes, we see one thing that hasn't happened yet: a warrior with a sword fighting some type of monster. This is foreshadowing for the end of the season. If you remember at the end of the last season, Polar Peak was struck by the volcano eruption. The ice on Polar Peak has been cracking ever since and rapidly progressing. At first, some strange sounds were heard coming from inside the ice. Next to be seen was a massive eyeball frozen in the ice. As the season progressed, it started looking around and more of the eye was revealed until eventually this creature escaped from the ice, gnawed on the tube, providing energy to Neo Tilted, and made its way into the nearby ocean. If you remember, the Ice King and the prisoner, when they were working together, they collected powerful beings and items. So it's possible that they actually collected this giant monster, and the prisoner actually freed him on purpose, as the volcano just randomly erupting and causing it to get freed. Realizing the imminent danger to the island, the Singularity and the government upgraded the facility at the pressure plant and began construction on a giant mech to battle the monster. The mech was built in the time of a couple weeks and uses design inspiration from different characters we've seen over the years, such as Beef Boss of the Durburger restaurant, Tomato Head of the Pizza Pit restaurant, and Drift, Rex, and Cuddle Team leader of the Road Trip crew. A few days later, the final showdown commenced. We see the giant monster rising out of the ocean, with the castle still sitting on its back. This creature is hideous with one giant eye in the middle. It walks around looking for its target, smashing trees and land around it. It unleashes a giant beam of energy, destroying everything in its wake. It destroys one of the pirate encampments that has been set up in the previous season. As this is going on, the mech rises up to prepare for the battle. Powering on, it starts walking forwards. This giant monster is known as the Devourer. It is targeting the power source in the vault that is powering Neo Tilted. The giant mech shoots a barrage of rockets at the monster, knocking it back. It swipes away, trying to deflect some of the rockets, but it's still standing, and now it's angry. The mech fires off another barrage of rockets at the monster, but it's still not enough to kill the monster. Angrily, the monster unleashes a giant beam of energy, this time at the mech. It starts making its way over to the mech. But the mech uses its jetpack and starts running towards the monster, tackling it to take it into the ocean away from the island to save as many people as possible and preventing any damage. The mech rises up out of the ocean, victorious, as it has slain the monster. It jetpacks back up onto the island. But it's not over quite yet. The monster surprises the mech and jumps on top of it, starts ripping it and tearing it apart. Starts taking bites out of the mech, and then tears off one of the arms. The mech, in its weakened state, falls to its knees. But the pilot inside gets an idea. It reaches its arm up and punches down into the vault, ripping out the giant orb of energy, squeezing it, crushing it, absorbing all the energy it can in order to defeat the giant monster. And then it turns and swings and punches the monster right in its face. While the monster is down, the mech goes in for the final move. It reaches into Neo Tilted and grabs the statue of the Singularity, pulling it up, revealing a giant sword rising it up to power it up with energy. It goes to battle the monster and slays it, stabbing it right in the head, showing Bunker Jonesy's prophecy coming true. The mech emotes on the giant monster. It then salutes while everyone celebrates and blasts off into space. Completely gone for the time being. With the giant orb of energy from the vault slightly crushed, it began rapidly declining. It continued to crack over the end of the season, going from a blue glow to purple, pulsating and emitting particles until it finally released a massive wave of energy. This wave of energy set a snapshot of Jonesy through time and space. As he saw different items and events from the past and different variations of characters, including Peely, who Bunker Jonesy drank in the previous season. Eventually, Jonesy falls back down to the island, with the meteor that crashed onto the island, suspended in animation, with Dusty Depot back in its original form before the meteor strike. The theme for Season X, Out of Time. Different variations we see of characters we've seen are Eternal Voyager, who is a variant of Dark Voyager, Catalyst, who is a variant of Drift, Ultima Knight, a variant of Black Knight, and Gut Bomb and Hot House, variants of Beef Boss and Tomato Head respectively. These characters aren't necessarily important to the story, but I just wanted to bring them up to illustrate how reality is destabilizing around the island, causing these variants to appear. For the main character of this season, let's take a look at the meteor. If you remember in Season 4, the meteor that crashed into the island brought a member of the Seven known as the Visitor to the island. So, if he was in that meteor and it's back again, he should be in this one, right? Well, like all the characters, this time is different. This time, a different member of the Seven appeared, the Scientist. His armor is very similar to the Visitor, but a lot bulkier in stature. So, I'd like to explain a few things to help you guys better understand what's going to happen throughout the end of the season. The Scientist has audio logs of him explaining what's going on, but it didn't make too much sense at the time until some things were explained at a later point. What you need to know is a giant orb of energy that cracked, causing the events of this season, is known as a 0 point. It's an immense source of power and is a center of the Omniverse. The Omniverse is a collection of all the different multiverses. For example, the DC multiverse and the Marvel multiverse are separate from each other, but are both in the Omniverse. That's how we've seen different characters come to the island in the past, such as Thanos from Marvel, the Demogorgon from Stranger Things, and hundreds of characters throughout the span of the game appearing on the island. The island is also on a loop, which repeats every 22 minutes. Think of it like the movie Groundhog Day, where you keep repeating the same events over and over, doing things slightly differently until you get it right. In this case, being winning the game and being the last player standing. Characters who are in the loop are called loopers. The effects of the loop cause different effects to the loopers, such as becoming mute, loss of memory, and loss of special powers such as super strength. So, if Superman were to enter the loop, he would be on the same level as just a normal human being. When a looper leaves the loop, they get their speaking ability back and all speak the same language. They don't get their memories or abilities back until they return to their home reality, unless they arrive to the island outside of the loop. When loopers leave the loop, they also leave a snapshot of themselves behind, which is basically an exact replica of themselves, but that version usually branches off and turns out differently. That should be all you need to know for now, but if not, I apologize. Please feel free to leave a comment on any questions you might have, and I'll be happy to answer them. But now, back to the Scientist. When the 0 point sent out that burst of energy, it caused spatio-temporal rifts to form, bringing in elements from other realities and timelines. it brought a past/alternate version of Dusty Depot back that was about to be hit by the meteor, but just as it was about to be hit, the scientists arrived outside the loop, which put everything on pause and created a time bubble around the 0 point, preventing it from fully exploding. When the scientist arrived on the island, he made some observations on the situation and made these tapes.
The 7 of us are attempting is very risky. I suspect they are not the only ones watching, but it must be done or we lose the bridge forever. I speculate that no one calculated the formation of the island, that interdimensional matter collisions would resolve rather than push. Now that I witnessed it firsthand, it's obvious that pinching alone made it inevitable. When I hear this again, will it help me remember? Or once looped, will I be just as muted as the others? No matter, it seems the lengthy precautions worked. The galactic theorem was a success. You arrived outside the loop at the exact moment of expansion. This effectively paused the singularity, giving us time to create the devices needed to synchronize the junction. What I didn't factor was that the only way to trigger the device was from within the loop itself. Thus this hasty and primitive recording. And why now I find myself looped. Activate the beacon at precisely the moment this timer reaches nothing. The 0 point must be contained once more. If they are correct, it will be the end.
And after these recordings, the scientist sends himself into the loop to activate the rift beacons. I know what he said was probably complicated to understand, and it's still a little murky for me, but I don't want to get too science-y with it, so hopefully you guys aren't too confused. When the scientist goes into the loop, he dismantles some of the mechs called brutes that got brought to the island and used their tech to build rift beacons he was talking about. Each of the rift beacons brought in different POIs from different realities to the island, and a few were also failures. The first one that was created was the one around Loot Lake, of course, holding the 0 point in place. This one would be separate from the others though. The first main one is where Neo Tilted was. This brought the past version of Tilted to the island, but not the past one you're thinking of. This version was from further in the past, in the old Western times. Building and destruction wasn't allowed in this area. The second one caused Retail Row to reappear, replacing Mega Mall. This version of Retail Row had Q monster spawners inside, and constantly spawned Q monsters. The next one to be built failed. This one was built at the stadium and exploded, causing a crater to form. The third successful one was built in the desert near the Pueblo and Trucker Oasis area. This rift beacon brought a town from the planet Pandora to the island, and if you aren't aware, this is the same Pandora from the Borderlands franchise. In this area, everything was cel-shaded, matching the looks from the Borderlands games, and loopers gained shield rapidly. Claptrap and Cycle Bandit appeared with this rift zone as well. The fourth rift beacon was built in Fatal Fields and caused the Loot Lake Island to reappear from Season 6. With this one, there wasn't an area effect like the others, however. The fifth rift beacon was built in the southeast in Paradise Palms. This one created a mixture of Paradise Palms and the original POI in this location called Moisty Mire, now being called Moisty Palms. Whenever loopers crouched in this area, it turned them into props. The sixth rift beacon was built at Greasy Grove. When the iceberg arrived in Season 7, Greasy Grove was completely frozen over, so when this beacon was activated, Greasy was completely thawed, except there's a big difference. Instead of the Durburger restaurant being in the middle of town, this area came from a reality where the Tacos fast food restaurant was at the center. We've seen these stands around the island in the past, but nothing as big as this before. In addition, tacos would rain from the sky with music playing, causing the loopers to dance as if boogie bombed, and regained health while dancing. Before the final rift beacon was built, the beacon at Tilted Town shifted realities, and Gotham City from the DC universe was pulled to the island. If I'm not mistaken, this is a version from the New 52 universe in DC, based on Batman and Catwoman's designs as they arrived on the island with Gotham. The Batman from the Dark Knight trilogy in the Nolanverse is also pulled here. In this rift zone, loopers could redeploy their gliders just like Batman. The final rift beacon was built over the ruins in the northwest region of the map. This brought the ruins into their form previous to when we first discovered them on the island, Starry Suburbs, and my personal favorite POI of all time. This was a small settlement with a mansion and a few houses. When loopers entered the area, a calming tune was played, and shooting stars fell from the sky with random loot inside. And with that, all the necessary beacons were ready for the end. Over the course of this season, the scientist set up tons of equipment in Dusty Depot to study the island, making sure he could comprehend as much as possible for what he and the Seven were attempting. He built a platform atop the depot and, like the visitor before him, began construction on a rocket. After the final beacon was ready, the scientists finished construction on the rocket and a countdown timer was set. There's one more thing I'd like to mention though. We got introduced to one more member of the Seven during this season. This is a Paradigm. During this season, we knew nothing about her, but she actually was one of the people who actually helped build the mech in the previous season, and she's actually the pilot. But that's all I'll say for now. We see Dusty Depot with the rocket prepped for launch as the timer counts down and finally reaches 0. The rocket starts blasting up into space, just like it had in the previous season. It slowly rises up as we see the rifts in the sky. A piece of the rocket breaks off as the rocket shoots farther up, going into a rift. All the rifts around start pulsating. As one of the rifts flash, and the rocket comes out of it. It flies past and goes into another rift. And then simultaneously, more rockets come out of different rifts and start flying around the island, flying into as many rifts as possible, destabilizing the island. The rockets start flying around towards the giant meteor in the sky. Then they all line up and start blasting into one rift. The rockets come out of a rift behind the meteor and fly in front of it, causing a rift to form. Then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and they keep on coming, constantly going into the rift and out of the rift. They unfreeze time around the meteor and pull it into the rift, preventing it from hitting Dusty Depot this time around. For now, it seems like the meteor is gone, but another rift forms above the sky. Only one this time. The rocket lines up and targets the 0 point. It blasts down into it, causing all the loopers to fly back. And then the meteor comes out of the rift, followed by the other 6 rockets. All aimed at the 0 point. Fly away, guiding the meteor down as the meteor crashes the energy aura around the 0 point, breaking it, causing all the loopers to fly back even more. All the loopers start getting sucked back. The release of energy causes a massive vortex to form around the 0 point, where it pulls everything into it. And all that's left is nothing besides a black hole. And this is the end of Fortnite for now. Every so often, numbers would pulsate out of the black hole, forming a sentence saying, "I was not alone. Others were outside the loop. This was not calculated. The nothing is now inevitable," setting up the future for Fortnite. So if you guys have stuck around for this long in the video, I just want to thank you for watching. I think this video is going to clock in a little over 40 minutes if I'm not mistaken. I'm recording this outro before I even finished editing it. It's almost 1 a.m. right now on the day of the Chapter 4 end event. It's been taking me a lot longer than I expected to get this finished with Thanksgiving and just the length of this video and everything that's been going on. I've had a lot of stuff going on. Plus I work a full-time job, so that's a factor into it. But yeah, I just want to apologize for taking so long to get this video out. I definitely didn't get out as fast as I was hoping I could, but if you guys did stick around for this long in the video, I just want to thank you for watching, and hopefully you guys can look forward to the videos that I have in the future, and stay tuned for some lore shorts to just help grow the channel and help gain views on this video. But again, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.